When it comes to things of the heart, which is that's what this industry is all about, you have to have people with heart to help you get there.
I'll never forget that 8-hour interview. And it wasn't an interview. It was a conversation.
Yeah.
It was where we were getting to know each other from the very, very beginning. And that really was the springboard.
They need to be able to come up with a solution so we're not playing badminton all the time with them. And so these are really important topics that we're discussing today.
A lot of these senior living facilities across the nation are bought and really operated from afar, sometimes from a completely different country.
I want to be there for that family member. I want our staff to be able to hold their hand, hug them, and say it is okay to say goodbye.
Sure did. Exactly right.
To go get some ice
Some
cream.
ice cream, yeah. And it's so exciting to be a part of.
It'll be amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest things I think we've learned.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Thanks for going on the journey with us. But you know the drill. Grab your favorite cup of coffee and pull up your comfiest chair and join us right here on Around the Table with Vickie. I'm your co-host, Chris Runk, and across the table from me, as always, is your host, my mother, Vickie Runk.
Super happy to dig into some more topics about senior living. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show.
And today we are still joined by Patrick Daly, our administrator at Liberty Ridge, and Carolyn Wooten, our administrator of Pearls of Life.
Hello.
Hello.
And we had a wonderful discussion. We're going to continue that discussion. So without further ado, let's jump right back in on it.
Let's go.
I like to talk a little bit about, some of the hard parts of the job. And one of the, topics that we kind of hit on is how do we balance care and compassion for our seniors when a lot of times our industry is under very strict regulations. What is that balancing act looking like? And Carolyn, I'm going to pose that question to our nursing home administrator first, because even though we're not a nursing home, those are even higher regulations.
Mm-hmm. Nursing homes, they are regulated by the federal government and state regulations, and they hold a higher standard as assisted living is regulated by the Department of Social Services. By being in assisted living versus the nursing home, in assisted living, it's more of a social model versus a medical model. When you get into nursing home, there's a lot of medical issues and a lot of people that have to have higher degrees to practice what they do, their scope of practice in the workplace. To our assisted living, we can do hands-on training, education, sending them out for a 40-hour class for CNAs, med techs versus nurses and stuff. It's just more of a social environment in assisted living versus nursing home.
What would you say, Patrick?
Compliance is always hard. Every day, as administrators, I look at through a different set of eyes than any other employee. We see as you go through the employee, or you go through the facility, you see little things as it's just a simple sugar packet sitting out. Well, from a regulation standpoint, a diabetic who has, memory confusion can pick up that, packet and eat it at any time. So, you eat chemicals. You got to look at chemicals from a different perspective. Even just a bottle of Pledge to you and me, just as a normal bottle of Pledge. However, someone who has, an impaired mind, may think that's toothpaste.
Mm-hmm.
So, regulations are hard, and our state inspectors are very firm on us, but, we have to keep within those boundaries and not, we're not here to test boundaries. We're not here to see, whether or not we can get by. We live and we work every day within those boundaries because our inspectors are, part of our team as well. They're here for the safety of the residents. And they're making sure that everybody is compliant for safety purposes. That's bottom line. And they also bring another element of education. When you sit there and you talk to these inspectors, they're not here to downgrade you, but, elevate you to make sure that you understand what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And why those regulations are in place.
Right. I think that might be where some families, too, don't understand that we're being looked at with a microscope. I mean, I honestly can tell you that we are inspected on a regular basis. We even have to self-report falls So if somebody falls in our facility, we're going to let that inspector know well before a family would even think about picking up the phone and complaining about it. They know before the family even calls. And you say, well, why is that? Well, they're that on top of it, that they're going to come and make sure that we did everything we needed to do for that fall or something that could have been preventable. So sometimes inspectors and regulations can prohibit us from being somewhat amiable to a family's request, because I've had families that would request, please don't let anybody know that mom's fallen. Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. We've taken an oath. We're mandated reporters. And so it's funny to me when a family comes in and says, I don't think you know this. I do know this, and every inspector on this side of the river knows it. So, I like the fact that we're held to certain standards, and they don't usually miss anything. So, if we need to pivot and make changes and we've done something that, we've dropped the ball on, I say on this show all the time, we are far from perfect. And because every administrator can't be there 24 hours a day, you and our family can't be there 24 hours a day, we're depending on staff. And in this industry, we talked about last show, it's always not staff that we would like for them to be where they need to be in their journey of care. We're constantly re-educating and laying the groundwork for what our expectations are. But just like any other industry, you don't have a team that gives, all of them are going to give you 100% at one time. Some may give you 25%, but then you pair her with a little girl that's going to give you 75%. And the administrators know who to work on what shifts and what they're going to give us and who's going to be responsible. But to say we're perfect is far from the truth. And I'll be the first one to admit that. I do know that what we are is family owned and operated, which I don't know of many facilities that can say that. That means that we're looking over the shoulders. We're inside the facilities. I get into the day reports every single day that highlight to me everything I need to know as an owner in case I want to interject myself, change the way the dynamics are being handled in a certain case, call a family myself, offer additional support or additional help.
Well,
So
I don't mean to cut you off there, but I want to build on that a little bit because, you talk about being family owned and operated. I just want to, from some reading out how rare that actually is. A lot of these senior living facilities across the nation are bought and really operated from afar, sometimes from a completely different country.
That's right.
Mom, that these things are operated and owned by investors that will never, ever darken the door of the property, never talk to a staff member, never lay eyes on a single resident, know what that building looks like, know the care that may be given. So that is extremely rare to find. Or they're owned and operated by a large hospital system or a large church. And so I think it's really cool.
And with Runkin Pratt, the foundation is there. It's the staff in the building, the residents, and all of us coming together to have that structure and compliance for our regulators and to make a difference.
And I think it's really cool for the past 25, 30, I don't know how long some of our inspectors have been with us, but I know of one individually that I have her cell phone number and I can pick up the phone and call her anytime I want to. And so can our administrators. So they are a part of our care team. Now, sometimes we might roll our eyes when they're walking through the door, but I think they expect that. But, we love the fact that they're going to give us advice, counsel, and sometimes mandate how a situation is going to be handled. If it's really out of my realm, I was involved in a situation last week to where a resident really wanted me to do something that I had to wait on an inspector to be able to inform me how she wanted it handled. And I think it's important that families understand there is a higher power to this industry.
Well, I would like to speak, probably for Carolyn, just myself, but maybe all of the administrators in this company specifically, because, it is extremely rare to have such access to the owners, to have such access to the entire team. And ma'am, your team is your family, but the crazy part is, even with me is I'll send an email, you'll respond in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And, that right there is how you get things done. And when we are operating as a business or we are waiting for approvals. I don't have to send a order all the way to New York for it to get, sent to corporate for 4 people to look at it and then to kick back to readjust. I send you a text and 10 minutes later you say, hey, Patrick, let's just do it this way. Or those 32 years of experience, you said, hey, I've done this before. Let's try it this way because it works a little better. That is the appreciation because it works. So thank you.
Love that.
Patrick, you mentioned Spout Springs a little earlier. And for any that don't know, that is our very first building in 1992. But Mom, on regulations and growing up and knowing that you did a little bit of everything back in the day. You were that med aide. You were that kitchen cook.
Mm-hmm.
You were the one running up and down the floor, being the nurse and really doing everything.
I've heard stories. I've heard stories.
I got in trouble one time for following an ambulance too tightly to the hospital. That my little 90-some-year-old lady was in the back, and I didn't want her out of my sight, so I took it really seriously. I never cooked. Your grandmother did. Thank God. But anyway.
But I just I can imagine
it's come so far.
Regulations have changed drastically.
It has.
And I also want to pose the question to you. I know you also have gone above and beyond a lot of the state regulations by providing more nurses on shifts and staff on shifts that are even required.
That's true. This past year at Runkin Pratt, we added to every building, which is not required. Every building has at least an LPN that is on duty, anywhere from 5 to 8 hours a day. Some buildings have 2 LPNs, and that's over there at Mr. Daly's place, 8 hours a day, and they're doing all kinds of different nursing functions. Pearls of Life has an RN on duty 8 hours a day and on call. So, that's something that I did. It's not required, but I see it coming a little faster than probably most because I'm privy to a lot of information coming out of, regulatory standards. And honestly, I've always had to be, and because you've lived with me, these two know because they've worked for me for so long, I have to have an edge on everything we do. And to me, that gave me an edge. And so when we're selling these beds or tours are being given, those are all things that, our admissions girls and guys will point out is that we're going above standards by providing X amount of LPN and RN oversight on a daily basis, except for the weekends. And some of our nurses will come in on the weekends if we have an issue. That helps with family education as well, because if you can set a family down, especially one that is having problems with guilt or understanding exactly what does mom and dad have and how is this going to affect us, to have an LPN or a nurse in the room that helps explain what these doctor notes are saying that we just received, what this lab work is saying about mom or dad that we just got over the fax machine, and this is why we need for them to be in the room because we're going to explain all this to them. Inevitably, it lends a sense of peace to that family that we've gone above and beyond and hit that extra step. And that's something that we've been able to do, and I'm super proud of that.
Patrick, you kind of talked on ownership involvement, just shortly ago.
Yeah.
If I were to say, what does it mean to everybody at this table if I were to say that Runkin Pratt's culture was a very resident-first philosophy?
I would agree with that, but let me add on to that as well. Residents always come first, but it's so important that, and it is proven that employees are just as important to the family. Yes, the business is residents, and yes, that is what we do. However, the focus is not just on the residents. The focus is on the employees. The focus is on giving back. I can't tell you the amount of fundraisers that we've done for Alzheimer's and the amount of different entities that we have into the building for us to give back. That's part of it as well. The little things that we have, the flowers out in the front, walls, being painted or countertops being replaced. If I even hint of a fact that something is subpar, Ms. Vickie's answer immediately is get it fixed. No questions asked, get it fixed. And that sets the standard. It's not just about, well, let's just, push that under the carpet and see who won't see it. Even with admissions, from the day that they come in, we want to make sure that everything is up to exactly the way that it was intended to be for the vision that the Runks have for the company.
Carolyn, what would you
And we let the residents decorate the way they want to, just like their room at home, and add little perks throughout, and activities and such as cooking and stuff like that. It's wonderful to see them just lighten up when they're stirring that bowl of cookie batter,
Mhm.
and enjoying
Well,
that.
I light up at cookie batter too. I mean, if I could get
And
some
then they're
cookie
so
dough out of there, hey, I'm happy.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
One of the biggest differences that I do see is because Roentgen Pratt is a Christian company, we have that ability to pray over people. We have that ability to pray together as a team. That brings a very different dynamic as well. When you have the ability to bring the good Lord into your building or speak about the good Lord with residents and the journeys and the support and everything, that you have, this business is hard. This
Yeah.
business is, and what the residents and families deal with. I can't tell you how many times a family, I'm looking across the table and they just are broken because they had to make decisions that they've never thought they've had to. And all I say is, would you like to pray for a minute?
Yeah.
And that just brings them to a different moment. And that is a little out of my wheelhouse. But coming into this company and having that support and understanding, I've changed and
Mhm.
I have grown as a person where I would have never asked someone on the other side of a table to pray with me.
Mhm.
But in a closed door, that's what they needed. And that family right now is one of our greatest families because they understand that at the end of the day, we're not perfect, but we care.
Yeah,
it's a
and
bond that's
it is. And I think
unbroken.
you meet these people right where they're at. And if
Mhm.
you can tell that you're not you're not able to get through to that family to have a specific one-on-one that says, listen, I think you're dealing with something far greater than whether dad got his medicine today.
Mhm.
You're dealing with something far greater because, we can fix this kind of stuff. If it's a constant complaint and they're totally dissatisfied all the time, then that's when we have to meet together as a team and say, are we the right place for your mom and dad? Because we want you to be satisfied. We want you to feel happy about being here. And if it's really not about the care, then most of the time it's something inside. And there is a lot of brokenness with families. There's a lot of dysfunctional families that we get. And they'll say, now listen, my sister's going to say one thing and my
Mhm.
brother's going to say, and so, but it's not our job to referee. They need to figure that out before they get to a table with us. They need to be able to come up with a solution so we're not playing badminton all the time with them. And so these are really important topics that we're discussing today.
And I think you're right. I mean, we talk about the cruise ship mentality and all the wonderful activities and all the go, but it is a very emotional business.
Mhm.
And I don't think folks realize the emotional toll on staff members, team members, residents, family that happen daily. And, Carolyn, I heard you say it's an emotional bond that is it's almost unbreakable. And, whenever a loved one enters the pearly gates and we get those family members that thank you for being there in those final moments. And thank you for your staff and their time, their energy, their effort, being there along to help us guide through that journey. I know it does me and my family and my mother. We love to get those emails or handwritten notes, and it means the world to us.
Well, we've been fortunate to be on this side of the table of being a family that needed caregiving. I mean, Carolyn was the one that took care of your grandmother Runk and your grandfather Runk. And, there's a bond there that we won't ever forget because she helped usher her to heaven. And the love and support that we felt, and I don't think it was just because our last name was Runk. I've watched them do this with everybody. The love and support that we felt, I'll never be able to say thank you enough, even to the point to where Carolyn went to the funeral home and did your grandmother's hair for her so that she could be presented in her casket. Not many administrators would do that. That's the kind of person Carolyn is. And again, it wasn't because her last name was Runk. She's done that with several other
Mhm.
residents as well. And the love and support, I mean, during COVID, she did hair for them. When we couldn't get the hairdresser in, she'd go in and she'd wash their hair. She'd
The
style it.
residents would laugh, and they was like, "You doing this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I would
It's me or nobody.
wash their hair, curl their hair, and the guys let me do the military style cut.
hmm
So
Yeah, I
it
mean, it
was
just goes beyond what normalcy is in this industry. You talked about big corporations coming in, the REITs, which if you're in the assisted living industry, you'll know what a REIT comes in and buys up all these different properties, and they list them and they sell them, and it's all about profitability and what it's going to do for those investors' bottom line. Just like Patrick said, when they need something, I don't look to see if it's in the budget. I just tell them to go and get it. I'll explain it to you, Daddy, later. He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Thank you.
And so for me, that's our brand. That's what I cut my teeth on 33 years ago down in a little tiny, hole of a place in Spout Springs, Virginia. Now for us to have these beautiful facilities that only God could have given us. And then I'm humbled enough to be able to service so many seniors that I've shared life with right here in this community. And I walk in and I see their face. There's a lady that I worked with at Belk that is in over up Liberty Ridge right now. She never lets me forget that I was 21 years old and I was a Giorgio girl while she was running the women's department. One of our seniors is at our front desk working, Carol Tyree. She was with me on my wedding day, helping me get ready in the dressing room. Been friends for life, and I'm still employing her. She's still working. I don't know.
Huge piece of the puzzle with us.
Yeah. So you plug in all these people that have been life partners. And I know people that are listening might think those are just cheesy people. They're trying to wrap this thing up in a bow and tie it real tight to where it's pretty. It's as pretty as we want to make it. Our industry can't always be glamorous. We can't always, wear our best Sundays dress to work because we got to do a little work, And when it comes to things of the heart, which is that's what this industry is all about. Mm-hmm. You have to have people with heart to help you get there.
So I'll say this from speaking from Liberty Ridge. Our success obviously is our employees. However, our best employees did not walk in the door and put an application in. Our best employees were placed.
Yeah.
Because there are people that you knew in your life. Yeah. There are people that, friends of this person or that person. A lot of people, they don't do it, for the money. They do it for for their heart. Mm-hmm. It's, we all have bills to pay. However, at the end of the day, it's the joy that mm-hmm. our residents, our servers that are in our dining room. Most of our servers in our dining room are plus 55 years old. And when you ask them, hey, why do you work here? And they said, I don't need the money. I will do this for nothing. It's the fact that I have the ability to help others. Mm-hmm. And she says, this is the only way that I could feel that I could do it now. It's a different world right now. And these people need help.
I love that. And when I hear this, it makes me know, Christopher, that, the mission that I set out on 33 years ago has unfolded. And if I had to step away tomorrow, this place would still keep going and the business would still keep going. And the love that I've had in my heart all these years lays right here with these people that we've trained.
I was going to say the same thing about Patrick. Whenever you came to us looking for a job and a little change of pace.
I'll never forget that 8-hour interview. And it wasn't an interview. It was a conversation. Yeah. It was where we were getting to know each other from the very, very beginning. And that really was the springboard. And Chris, I remember you sitting there as a young man and as on your computer, not really into the conversation. But, every single conversation I think I've ever had with your parents, you've been part of. You were either in the room. So when torches are passed, it's going to be a great feeling of consistency. Mm-hmm. We're really looking forward to that.
And then when you talk back to not many people are family owned and operated anymore, it is the second generation that has to buy into these family owned and operated in our industry. And I've told them over and over again, if your heart's not in it, then get rid of it. But inevitably, all three of them look at me and say, Mom, we know this is what God's called us to do. And I couldn't be more proud of each and every one of them. And you're right, Christopher's been intentionally placed at tables and in rooms. And he has to go with me sometimes. And he'll say, I would have never handled it that way, Mom, but it was the right way to handle it. So learning as we go and preparing for the torch to be passed, which I have done a lot already. Mm-hmm. I can't, from an owner, I'm just so proud of what we've created and what we have right here in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Well, on your note, you talk about heart in your interview. That's where I was going with this. You maybe didn't quite have the experience at the time. And we knew we could teach that. You were willing to go get, but we sat in there and said, Patrick has the heart
Mm-hmm.
for these residents, for these seniors.
And you don't always see that. And when you have interviews like
grab it.
that, you grab
You
it.
grab it with all you got.
Yeah. Yeah. What a wonderful conversation we've had. Thank you all for joining us. And I think we
Well,
maybe.
we got one more. I got one more
yeah,
question
we got
for
to
Carolyn.
get Carolyn's got to have her closing moment. Yeah.
Carolyn, so I'll pose the question to you. There's a lot that goes into the day. Tell us about a time that your work reminded you why it mattered, whether it was a family, a certain decision, a resident you connected with. Just tell us about one of those glimmer moments.
Well, it was like during COVID time when I got to be able to do hair, cosmetology. Maybe that would have been my next choice instead of healthcare.
Now you know where to go get a haircut.
Hey,
So
and some
it was
car
just
parts
the opportunity
from the very
to,
beginning.
step out of my administrative role and really get in the trenches and provide care to the residents. And everybody loves to get their hair done and stuff like that. And it was free.
Mhm.
So they loved it.
Mhm.
Every week they lined it up for a haircut.
Mhm.
I got one more question for you. If you could say one thing to a family trusting you with their loved one, what would it be?
I think to step back and put yourself in our shoes at this moment. We are inheriting an individual that we don't know, and we have to have time to wrap our minds around that and our hearts. And then we're inheriting a family as well that walks through that door every day and is expecting answers and expecting solutions and expecting service. And so to give us grace that as we learn each of you, that we will grow and we will be better each and every day. To not treat us as strangers that have been put in their lives for an insignificant amount of time, but we are there to carry out a mission and be a part of a journey and create a care team with that family to where there's utmost trust on both sides. And I think if we can establish that from the very beginning, that they trust us and we trust them, that we're in for a beautiful relationship. We're in for a beautiful journey. And it will be one that will be rewarding for them in the end, to where the guilt that they're carrying, we can help them with, and it can dissipate over time because they will have known that where they placed their mom and dad was the very best for what we could provide at that very time. And I think for with families, they just need to learn to get to know what the industry is, look up the regulations, look up what we're bound by law to do, and then to create a bridge between us that ends up being a beautiful journey along the way.
Mom, you just mentioned, taking care of my grandfather and my grandmother. They were right there at Leesville Road. That's where they passed away, Mr. and Mrs. Runk, my dad's parents. And those are moments that you don't foresee coming.
Mhm.
They're moments that my mom does very, very well in. She is extremely gifted at that. I myself am not, and that is I struggle through that. But I think a lot of people do, and that's where I think we spend a lot of time and energy with our staff, because that's a tough thing to do, and training them and how to provide that end-of-life care, be there for that family member,
Mhm.
and is something that my mom has taken a great deal of time to develop.
Right. It's important to me to teach our staff how to properly say goodbye, because most family members don't know how to do that themselves. And so for me, when I'm with a family, and I've been with several, and I'm with them, I'm teaching them how to say goodbye to their mom and dad. And they may think that it's okay just to sit by the bedside and say nothing, but I encourage them to talk to them and to say those words, because we don't know whether they hear us or not. Science would tell us that they do.
Mhm.
And so while they're still here on this earth, let's hold their hand, let's kiss them, let's let them know how much they've meant to us. But then we also give them the freedom to leave, which hospice teachers will teach you how to do. That, we step away and we let them, when God finally, he's the ultimate, taker of that last breath, but we help that family through that. So although we're focused as a care team on that individual, is it time to turn them? Do we need to swab their mouth? Are we documenting when the last medication was given? Are we making sure they're clean and that we don't need to change their clothes? Because we're doing that till the last minute, right? We're also really educating that family. This is how you let go without guilt. And that has been the biggest blessing in my life. To be able to know that when that family member is done with that experience with us, they experience peace. For some of them, it's the first peace they've experienced because of the dynamics with the family. That it's okay to say goodbye. And not to be able to say goodbye in those moments can be hurtful, and it will carry on emotionally and mentally throughout their lives. And that's what we don't want to have happen. I want to be there for that family member. I want our staff to be able to hold their hand, hug them, and say, it is okay to say goodbye.
Well, Patrick and Carolyn, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being here. What a wonderful conversation. Mom, I know you like to end each show with a quote, so take it away.
Okay, here we go. Love and strength are found in looking after the elderly, emphasizing that this is a privilege. It's a reflection of humanity and an opportunity to find deep love, which is exactly what we just talked about. The opportunity that while we're in a profession, we're still finding deep love inside ourselves for each and every resident. And some residents, it's deeper than others. But along the line, we find purpose. And when we can teach our caregivers to find purpose, it is something that will last a lifetime. So until next time, I'm Vickie, and we're all just really enjoying being right here around the table.